one, and we'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a quick roll call. Amy Irvin is here. Mr. Simon?
Here.
Blair Owen? Wicker?
Robert Younger.
Greg?
Here.
Refreshing?
Aye.
Bending?
Yes.
Hey, great. Full house. Has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda?
Make a motion that we accept the agenda.
I'll second.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. How about the minutes? Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Any changes? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion for that.
I make a motion to accept.
I second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Same sign. Perfect, moving along. Election of officers.
Unless there's opposition, I would make a motion that the presiding officers in their place remain in those places.
The only question I have on it, and Tim, maybe you have this somewhere here and I'm just missing it. I printed this microscopic. Village councils actually voted in, right? So
Right.
when. And my position is up when?
Board and committee members are July 1st terms begin. And we have to do this every year for officers, so.
Okay, just to make sure. And obviously you're not going anywhere, so. um, Any other conversation surrounding that?
Like, nobody opposed or doesn't want to serve in what they're currently serving, then I would just, like I said, make the motion that they stay in their current positions. Second, I'm good.
Okay, all those in favor?
I just like to make it
Opposed,
easy.
same side?
I didn't know whenever these people can make that motion. I make a motion, I stay on that. Put that in the minutes.
That's why I always say lots opposed.
Okay. Well, I do not have anything pressing to report, so we'll move along to the village manager.
Yeah, a quick report for you guys tonight. We wrapped up the dredging work on Birch Bay. I should say it's done, but it was ongoing as of last week technically because we'd still not pulled the blankets off the new launch, but I think those came off right before the snow came the last couple of days, so all was done. They're gonna have to come back in the spring and do a little touch up on the driveway, that kind of stuff, but the work is done essentially. Isabella County has formally terminated our coverage contract with the sheriff effective 12/31/2004. 24. As you know, the sheriff's department no longer provides road patrol to the county. The petitions that we need to move forward for cityhood, the state is updating that apparently during the last session of the legislature. Legislation was adopted that amended the language that has to be on those. So they have 60 days to update the petitions to reflect the new language. We had several bills we were watching during lame duck. None of them passed. Most of those are good in our opinion, but there was a bill that was going to preempt local control over short-term rentals. There were a series of housing bills. One would make duplexes allowed by right. But it's like a single family home, you can build a duplex anywhere, convert a home into a duplex. There was a proposed statewide septic code that was gonna require inspections and licensing every 3 to 5 years. There are two at the end there that we were supportive. One was a revenue sharing trust fund that would have got us like 6 to 8 grand more a year in revenue sharing, and then amendments to the Land Division Act, which I've testified in the Senate in support of, but none of that made it out. That's some much more fun discussion to have on why that all happened at another place in time, but That is all I have for you guys tonight. Council meets through the first meeting next week of the year. ZBA met in December and approved variance request on Castle Court. And we'll talk about that a little bit under the second public hearing tonight.
Okay, super. Mr. Laraway, the village report?
The December 17th meeting, including a review of Mr. Wolf's performance for his annual evaluation, lasted a total of 1 hour. And he's already covered everything.
Super. Well,
I
this
have
is gonna
nothing
be
to
short
add.
and sweet. Great. Well, then I guess we'll move on to public hearings.
There.
And I'll go ahead and open this to you for the proposed ordinance 2015. I'm sorry, 2025-01.
Your first two public hearings tonight would be a recommendation to the village council to amend the zoning map of the village. Some of you who've been around the block a little bit may remember in around 2022-23, we received a request from the Cooks to rezone the bulk of their property from LR1 to Ag, which we did. And I'm just gonna get up and show you. That is this kind of E-shaped block here. Last year, you may remember that this is Unified Brands, Delfield, whatever they're called these days. There was a house right here that got demolished and there's still a garage there. This parcel has since been reabsorbed back into the parent parcel here. And the house is obviously gone. So this amendment would take this section here that's zoned LR5 and rezone it to Ag, so it matches the rest of the property up there. Had no comments, questions, or concerns sent in beforehand. The landowner is here tonight, if you have any questions for her, but she had talked in the office, this fall, and I brought it up, I'm like, you know, it'd make a lot of sense to just make that back to Ag, so everything was one and the same, and so it's not this outlier, and that way they can also go to the assessor and say it's all Ag now too, so. If you guys move forward, the council has to do the same thing, they have to hold a hearing and before it will be formally adopted, so. That,
So all we're doing is giving approval to move it to the, or we actually approve it here, then.
We move to
Yeah, we got-
the council vote.
yeah, you have to recommend the ordinance to the council.
Okay.
So moved.
Oh, don't we need to hear?
Yeah, I had
from
public
them?
comment first, yeah.
Is there any comments?
I think they're for it.
I think you're right.
Well, it's gone. It's- It only took 3 dumpsters to get it out of there, but it's not an eyesore anymore. So
Just for Tim's minutes, can we have you state your name? So we can.
Kimberly Cook,
Great, thank you, Kimberly.
I am
The septic and the well still there, or? are they gonna be
The
changed, or gonna-
septic has been filled
Okay,
and the well was plugged
okay,
and there is no power to that lot at all. There is a, we call it the blue barn because our other 2 barns are brown. So, I haven't decided if I'm gonna tear it down and recycle the steel or leave it for a pontoon or something like that, but not sure what I'm doing yet with it. I don't know if you're all aware that Alan passed away in November.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't-
Unexpectedly. So I have a lot of property to decide what to do.
So if it doesn't go to Ag, is it able to still have, an outbuilding on that? Or that's not part of
Technically,
the,
no, they would need to tear it down. This makes a lot more sense to rezone it to ag.
if it was rezoned to ag, she wouldn't have to tear it down.
As long as my only concern was the septic tank and the water, so as long as those have been taken care of, I have absolutely no problem with. Then you get back to ag.
It's consistent with the master plan for the area too,
Right.
so.
You still stand firm with your motion?
I jumped the gun, so I'm not sure I should.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. Do we
I think
have
it
some-
makes sense. I mean, it absolutely makes sense. I would move that we push it onto the.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll push it out.
We'll introduce it at council next Tuesday, and they would have a hearing in February to finalize the process.
My only other question is that address
The address,
is 438.
yeah,
And so when I go to the gift map on the, or the GIF
Yeah.
map, whatever you call it, it's listed under 438 and, or our property is listed
390.
under 438 instead of 392 now.
okay.
So,
That's a community development. If the county has Tim Newport, I
okay.
can shoot them an email and give them a heads up so they know to flag that. But
What's his name?
Tim Newport,
Okay,
Neiport.
okay. I figured it was just a matter of
I'll make sure.
communicating, because 438 was the original farm address.
Right here.
Moving on to the.
We did.
Oh, you did.
Thank you. Proposed ordinance 2025-02. Zoning code update.
Say 7:13. Your second public hearing tonight is for a series of text amendments to the ordinance that were worked on late last year, that kind of time frame. Don't need boring it up here. So when we last met in November, we had left kind of two areas up for further review and discussion. And if you look on the actual draft, on the bottom of each page on red is the page number of the draft. So on page 16 of the draft, we visit the issue of garden fences. And where we had left off this discussion in November was, what were we comfortable with in terms of front yard space? And looking at it, what I present to you tonight would be essentially raised planter boxes that you could fence in. 50 feet from, the ordinary high watermark, 35 feet from the street side property line, 8 feet from any side or rear property line. So that pushes it back, to your normal setback for a home throughout the village. And it limits that size in terms of, you can't just sprawl out this big area, The only area that I didn't kind of address, I want to see what you guys thought was, do we need to put like a square footage cap on like the size these things could be? I don't think it's a huge issue if we don't. But
Has there been any problem with oversized?
no, not something like that.
I wouldn't either, not with the plus the lumber and different things, in the
Yeah.
logical sense that somebody would
Yeah.
do their whole yard in raised beds,
Yeah.
doesn't even make sense.
With your structure that you kind of got an idea, would that be considered as a shed or a gazebo?
No, we still treat it as fences. It's not enclosed,
No roof.
no roof.
Hmm.
If they were enclosed, then we treat it kind of like a greenhouse, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That'd be the realm to be getting into there. On page 29. We're into the topic of sheds on vacant lots. And we had talked about the idea of doing a pattern book. And so I went to one of our local big box stores. And they have literature available. And I picked up a handful from one of the books. Said, if we were to allow this. We could easily create a pattern book based something similar like this. That pre-approved shed if you're gonna do a waterfront, and if you don't wanna pick one of these. It says adopted by resolution of planning commission, so that resolution that you would adopt would say you can come to us for approval, zoning administrator can approve it, whatever. But I think this gives you that control you were concerned about in terms of if you were to allow it on vacant waterfront lots specifically, what it would look like.
But it wouldn't necessarily be this or that, it just have to be approved, right?
Yeah, if they didn't want to do one of the pre-approved ones, they could always come back in and say, well, we want to do this because of this.
If they want an Amish built one or something.
Yeah. If it's an Amish built one that's in this style, I think that would be something I could approve, like, we're not picking the Henwood from Home Depot, but we're picking, the Amish built one that's got, the same board and batten and
Features.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It just makes it so that things don't have to come in front of us. You can
Correct.
do your job.
Yeah.
People feel comfortable that they have some
Yeah.
autonomy. I'm not saying that word right.
Um,
Yes, to just move forward with it.
So have we gotten to the point where there used to be shed sizes and then there was like this gap and then the smallest detached garage?
mhm.
Have we gotten to the point now where there is no more? Just basically it's a shed or some kind of thing up to a certain square feet and then after that it now becomes a detached garage or a detached building?
So in the ordinance, we cap sheds at 240.
Okay, so we do still have
Yeah.
a limit.
But we don't have a line of demarcation that says garages start at 400. So there used to be a gap and we said, basically anything bigger than the 240 is gonna be considered a garage at that point in time.
So,
So that's when you gotta have the concrete floor and,
okay,
that kind of stuff.
but the minimum garage size used to be, if I'm not mistaken, 576 or so?
No.
Or is
That was, no, what you're thinking of is for like new development, the minimum attached garage size.
that- All right,
And, it varied by district, so like in the LR2 district, you could do a 1-car attached or a 2-car detached.
okay,
And it was, I wanna say 484 off the top of my head was the number, it was like 22 by 22.
right, yeah, something like that.
20 by 24, 22 by 22, that range. We put in there, it's kind of like the bare bones minimum, that if you're gonna build a home with an attached garage, it's gotta be at least this size.
Okay, so the maximum size shed now,
Still 240.
okay,
Yep.
all right. I just want clarification to know where we've gone from that point, so.
And then the final, and this is a new change. The ZBA met in December for a case on Castle Court.
Garages?
Yep.
Garage doors.
And in that case, the applicant was requesting 2 12-foot doors. The ordinance right now reads, you can have one more than 10, up to 14, and everything else is capped at 10. And in looking at the ordinance, the ZBA, and I share this opinion. When we started to allow the taller garages, you can go up to the 28-foot height now. That door regulation, I think, kind of got overlooked as not being a practical part of the code at that point in time. And we actually took it out in terms of attached garages. So in attached garages, it ties specifically to how many stories you have. So if you're a single story, you've got the 10-foot cap, but if you're over that, you can go to the 14 and there's no limit on the total number of those. So the change on page 33 basically just takes out that 10-foot number, just moves it to 14.
Yep.
Anything over than 8 still's gotta have windows. The ZBA was very comfortable that, there's enough design requirements in there that going to these taller doors isn't gonna be a major detriment to anybody and not have any negative impact on property values, so.
And bigger RVs.
Yeah.
Gives them the access to be able to put a bigger RV in there instead of storing it outside, they can't get into the garage door.
Questions or comments on that?
Yep.
Public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to check with them first. Okay, we'll open it up for public comment. If you'll just state your name so we can have it for the minutes. And you have 3 minutes.
I just have a Kim Fox from 6613 West Little Turtle Way. I was just wondering on the footprint for the sheds, if you had a porch or, if that would be inclusive with that as well. I haven't saw your prints.
No, so as you remember, when we did the zoning update in 22, 23, we changed the footprint definition to coincide with where your walls are, not where, if you have a cantilever or a cover porch, we weren't counting the post as that footprint, we were counting the walls, so.
That couple that wanted to put out.
Yeah.
The deck with the two.
It's the enclosed wall
That made
space.
that change, so.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
And-
that's cute.
And second, is there a roof design like gambrel or, the traditional, were you guys looking at that as well?
For sheds, we don't have anything in there, so that has to be another.
So you could have a gambrel,
Yeah.
would you give you some more storage up top?
We have a height limit, but I think
Okay.
what, 13 feet? I think that jumps out to in my mind right now. Which is
An
Yeah.
There you go.
8-foot balls or something, isn't it?
8-foot sidewall max and
So if we want to put one, come to the planning commission and get approval, correct? Or
if the
you-
ordinance gets adopted,
If the ordinance.
if the ordinance gets adopted.
And you pick from the templates, you would just see Mr. Wolf. You wouldn't need to come in front of us.
Oh, okay.
Ideally, so now we would push all 3 of these onto the village council,
Correct, you would
which
need
you
a,
said meets in February.
they would need next week, but
Oh, okay.
they have to introduce it
And then.
before they can. Because they are required by law, well, they're required by our charter to hold a public hearing on all ordinances. State law requires if you hold a hearing on any zoning ordinance, that it must meet your notification deadlines. So we have to notify 15 days in advance again, so. The council's always, we introduce 1 month and we try and hold the hearing the following month, unless they want to sit on it for a month and look at it, make any changes, that kind of stuff, so.
And one last question.
Yeah.
If I heard you right, if we meet the template, you could approve it
Yep.
without coming in front of us. Okay,
That would be the plan, yep,
all right.
that'd be consistent.
Anybody online, Tim?
Well, okay, how about lines, like you said, back lot, or if it's going on the lake, does it have to have a setback? So far, so you would, I could get that when I came in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a couple online, but nobody's speaking up, right?
Nobody's got their hand up, correct?
Okay, super. Well, then we're gonna go ahead and close the public comment and move on to existing business, which does not exist.
Before we go on to that,
Oh,
I
please
want
skip
to,
yours.
on that ordinance of the shed on lakefront property, I still feel opposed to it. It can have all the best intentions we can, saying, well, it's just to store your boat and lawnmower. And somebody may, and that may be what it is, but the people that don't is what's gonna start causing the problem. The people that stay there, the people that set the fire up, and when it's out at midnight, they go inside. We can't say that's never gonna happen. And when I think when we look at changing an ordinance, we have to look at all of those things. We can't just say in a tunnel vision that, well, who would want to do that? So I'm still, even though we've come up with shed designs and stuff like that, it still, to me, doesn't answer the question of the overall usage of it and the management or the enforcement of that usage. So there.
I agree with you, Mike, and I've been the same way since the start. I think if, assuming this all passes and goes through, I think we will start to see some issues and problems come up that Tim or the code enforcement officer will have to deal with, but I guess at this point, I'm willing to wait and see how it happens and how often it happens, but I could foresee people putting the shed out there, staying overnight, which they're not supposed to do, putting things outside, just, a slow buildup of an issue is what I think will happen, but I'm willing to wait and see at this point to see what's gonna happen.
So what would you say would be the fix? Just
Not allow sheds on a vacant property, so that would be my, yeah, on vacant.
I personally think waterfront property,
Mhm.
people that own waterfront
Mhm.
is not gonna do that. That's just my feeling. If you had some, it would be the vacant lots that are not on waterfront, and then I guess I don't know what the fix would be, but.
I don't know, we have waterfront that just say to heck with the noise pollution. And, they run till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with loud music. I don't think you could say because you have a waterfront lot, you would never do something like that. And you're right, the owners of it may be that way, but what about the kids? What about the nephew? What about the relatives that come up? Can I go up to the lake and, yeah, we got, kayaks in there. Go ahead and take kayaks out and run with it. And, here's some, I'm not denigrating kids or anybody's personal kids, but that would be usually the group that would come up and have the party and be out there paddling around with it. And then where are they gonna go? Well, let's stay right here.
I guess
So I'm not sure that,
mine would be- My thoughts would be if, to not do it because a couple bad eggs. To somehow be able to enforce it, so you're not affecting the ones that
yeah,
are truly gonna use it.
Right.
but we're asking for an ordinance change here. So there's, yeah, I think that it just doesn't, to change the ordinance for what we think somebody probably won't do. Especially when we're in an atmosphere where we've seen the probably don't do's do.
Probably don't.
I'm still concerned with it, and I
So
want to
what,
go on the record, it's still my
what would be the
concern.
punishment for a violation? Is there any language in here for a violation like that?
So the note that I have written down here is, because this would essentially be a special permit that you're going to get. That permit has on there, no overnight camping, no power, no generators, and, any of these results in the revocation of this approval and permit.
Which could mean up to removal
Yeah.
of the shed.
100%.
Fine and or
Yeah.
remove it.
And also you need to consider too, you guys are making the recommendation to the council could
Right.
yank this out completely and say,
Yeah.
we understand where they're coming from, but we're just not comfortable as a council going down that road too,
I was more open to taking, for instance, the people that wanted to do it down on the southwest side of the lake, down by you. I understand that they don't want to walk all the way as far as they did. And I would probably been okay with shed on wheels, meaning they can haul it in. Use it for the day, for the weekend, whatever, and then pull it back over to their own property again.
Where are you talking?
Because it wasn't gonna be permanent. It was the one that was
Claudia's
put
property?
in.
Okay.
Yeah, the brown and orange one or whatever it was that way. At least it wasn't permanent, and I'm in agreement with you, Mike, that I think once something becomes permanent, it's gonna push and push and push. And I don't know how code enforcement doesn't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for us, Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken, but.
It's more than that, but
But so I don't know how we enforce it and keep it doing it that way. Maybe someday if we had a police force here and do it, but I agree with you. I think it's gonna get abused. I think it's gonna be an eyesore somewhere down the road. I agree. I don't wanna have it happen that way, but we'll see what the council says.
I think temporary sheds with wheels would be a eyesore, but that's just me.
Don't get a side sore from one that's sitting there. They tow it away. that
Yeah,
next
yeah,
day.
yeah, but then,
But then
then,
they
then
don't,
you have to
that's-
enforce
we're
them to
gonna
tow
be
it.
there. Now we're gonna, exactly.
You're right.
because
You're
Well, we're
basically
gonna be
making
up
my argument
For the
that
next month.
we're gonna
we're
have
not
to
towing it.
enforce it.
You know, the price of the waterfront lots. I cannot see somebody just putting up a shed. I mean, and putting it where they're gonna spoil their view. And when they're gonna put up a house, maybe they can't afford it, they're not gonna put a shed right in front where you build a house. I mean, I just can't conceive somebody being that illiterate. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the right term, but that, I mean, they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot. So I understand everybody's concern. But I would like to see us try it, and if there's, seems to be an abuse. Then we can nip it in the bud and say, this is gonna stop now.
Yeah, for
Right.
anything that had been put in place before that will have to be grandfathered in.
Well, I mean, no violations, this type of stuff, but then if you get a violation, we're not kidding around.
Yeah.
We're not gonna slap your hand, we're not gonna say, oh, you shouldn't have done that, doggone it, please don't do it again. All right, we're gonna make it stick. That's what you have to do to stop it, to control it.
I mean, I would think that you could control it just as much as you do putting a shed on a lot beside residence. Where if you end up and you sell the house and you don't sell that lot with it, you have to remove that shed or barn. It'd be the same way here. If you have the authority to do that, you could do something where if they break what it says, that, I'm sorry, you gotta remove it. You did not, abide by our law or our ordinances, that gets,
Yeah, the accepting of the special use permit, that says they will abide by these conditions. Any violation, can cause removal of the shed, and you're done.
When they, assuming this all goes through and they were gonna apply to put a shed there. Is there even a permit anymore that would be required for doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Like you were
For
just
right
saying,
now.
on that permit, would it say these are not allowed and this is just.
Yeah, that's.
What happened, okay,
Yeah.
so at least they're signing something.
Yeah.
Saying we agree with, if we do these bad things, then this is what's gonna happen.
This,
Okay.
and they acknowledge it, they can't have it, there's no argument against it.
Yeah,
But I want something signed that stands up in court.
that's what we do
Makes it,
for.
way easier to go. to
That's
court
what
and say,
that's what I'm trying to get at.
When you're building right now and you build, detached garage on the lot next to you,
Mhm.
we make you combine them through us with a deed restriction, so. We would work with our legal counsel and come up with a suitable form that would acknowledge that.
If someone buys a lakefront lot and at this point, cost of materials can't afford to build today, but they can put a shed on. That they can store their lawnmower and their kayak or boat or something of that nature, so they can enjoy the lake. I don't have a problem, personally, I don't have a problem with it.
I do not either.
See what council does with it, so either at this point, the same thing, you want the recommendation be sent
Correct,
to the council, so.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we, go ahead and send proposed ordinance 2025-02 to the council. So-
I second the motion if we can send some of our concerns along with it. Okay, I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Now, I tried to skip that, we have no existing business. And we do have some new business, the 2024 Planning and Zoning Annual Report is in front of you.
So annually, you are required by law. I like saying that, you guys are required by law. To submit a report to the legislative body. Detailing planning and zoning activity for the previous year and outlining recommendations and suggestions for the future. In this realm, we have pretty long-standing template form that we've done our report around. So I'm just gonna briefly walk you through that. In 2024, we saw 59 zoning permits, which was an increase of 3 from 2023. Saw 16 new home permits, that was an increase of 7. We had 2 variances, one was approved, one was denied. We had 1 ordinance amendment, 6 planning commission meetings. Of our just over 1,010-ish homes, 421 have been built since 1998 when we incorporated, so. You can see that. Realistically, the last of the unbuildable lots issues were resolved at the end of 2018, give or take. And you can see after we did that, the building activity picked right back up. We went 14, 11, 9, 9, 16. So we've seen a very healthy season of development since 2020. It's certainly not what we saw around 2000 when we were seeing 45 new homes, 36 new homes, 39 new homes. We will never see that again, just based on builders, but. You know, it sure beats the 2 new homes that we have every year for 2010, 11, 12, 13. The planning commission worked on one ordinance last year that got adopted. That was daycare regulations that we updated. We did special land use for a garage across the street. And then technically the 2 family or group daycare homes are special land uses as well. So you did 3 of those. You did not have any site plans officially, but you did have that fun review exercise in November where you looked at the condo development. ZBA met twice. One was denied, one was approved. We did have some training that we completed in the calendar year through the Michigan Association of Planning, which I will hand out at the end of the meeting, but they got it in the mail today. This year's class offerings in March for those who are interested. We'll deal with that at the end of the meeting. Farzad, you did training last year. Yep. Yep. I think we did non-conformities.
That's right.
That sounds right. We are working on our master plan update. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit because we got a Michigan grant to do a target market housing analysis. And then our recommended goals for the year, update the master plan, finalize the zoning code update. That was your public hearing that you just did. Review necessary items to maintain our redevelopment ready status, which if you're wondering, that's with the big poster in the, when you walk in, it looks straight in the eye next to my office door. That's our from MEDC poster. Continue to invest in training and continue to add information to the website to make the process easier and more understandable for residents. That's one that is always on the list of things to do where we're trying to work on getting like 1-pagers for each zoning area. So when someone comes in and says, what do I need to do to build a house in this area? There you go. These are the things you have to do for that area of the village. So I will happily answer any questions that you have over the report.
Questions?
Not, just need a motion to send her on down the line.
Send them.
I was gonna say, am I allowed to make a motion to send?
Yep, you are.
Okay.
No, second.
All those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Moving it forward, onto the master plan update.
So part of our master plan update, our current master plan was really the beginning of a pronounced change in our economic development philosophy at the village. And typically, when you think of local government and economic development, historically, it's always been built around the idea of attracting industry, you know, these big employers. And then there was kind of a rebirth in Michigan where we really wanted to focus on entrepreneurs and we wanted to focus on small business. We wanted to focus on downtowns, livability. We took that to the next step and said, look, we don't have the infrastructure in terms of water or sewer. So we're not going to attract industry. We don't think industry is copacetic with what our identity as community is. Because we didn't incorporate until 96 and didn't even begin as a development until the mid-60s, we don't have a downtown. We have a commercial corridor. So that economic model isn't where we're going to be, especially if we don't have water and sewer and we have known soil conditions over there that make development a higher hurdle, especially south of Baseline. So, what are we really good at? We're a place that people want to live. We offer you in Lake Isabella the chance to live in a community with a nice lake, with good internet, with a low cost of living because we have a tax cap. I generally feel quality services, even if we don't have police right now. So our philosophy became, hey, let's really focus in on what we can do to be the place where people really want to live in mid-Michigan. You can work someplace else, that's great. We want you to live here. And part of that is a little greedy on our part because of that tax cap. We make more money on revenue sharing based on population than we do on taxes. So for us, there's a tremendous value in having people live here because those are the dollars that we see come in through revenue sharing. We'll make more on a family of 4 moving into a house over a decade on those 4 people's revenue sharing dollars than we do on the property taxes on average. So knowing that, it just happened to be coincidental at the time that our regional planning entity was doing target market housing analysis on a countywide basis. I think Farzad, you went to that meeting, was at Mount Pleasant City Hall. And because we were one of the biggest municipalities in the county, we had our own little, addendum in the report that focused on us. So we built our master plan around what we saw in that report. So one of the things in that report is called your American Mosaic. So for every human being that, is paranoid that the government knows too much about you, government doesn't know anything about you. Experian knows a lot about you. Experian knows way more about you than you want to know they know about you. Experian has a thing called the American Mosaic. And, it's here, one of the big 3 credit bureaus with TransUnion and I remember the other one.
Equifax.
Equifax, yeah. I should remember them because I get emails about their data breach all the time. I get my $7 check for that. But they break Americans into, I think, 90 some lifestyle clusters. So based on your spending habits and your other demographics, you fall into one of these clusters of lifestyle. And when we looked at that report in 2016, one of the ones that jumped out was stock cars and state parks. And it's basically people that have a lot of toys. Said, hey, if that's what we're drawn, people are drawn to our community fit in this demographic, boy, we really should amend our land use code to give them more storage options. So that's what we started to do. That was the rebirth of allowing bigger garages in the community, is saying, we have the data showing that this is the market that we are in. Let's do things that make people want to come to this market. Pretty simple. So when we got to the point where we needed to update the plan, because it's 5 years old, 6 now technically, it coincided with a grant opportunity from MISHDA. So we reached out, we submitted an application, and we got funded to have a new study done specifically for Lake Isabella. You all got the 200-page PDF version emailed to you. In your packet tonight are kind of some of the finer points from the first kind of data dump area of it. And so I just want to kind of briefly walk you through a little bit about this. One of the things that really came out in the data that was presented to me was none of the development that we should be trying to attract and plan for should be too urban in nature. It's not harmonious with our character as a community. It's not the market that we're in. The people coming here aren't looking for that type of development. Which, was refreshing to hear, because in the land use profession and planning profession, there's been so much talk about missing middle. What are we doing to build missing middle housing and that kind of stuff? And by and large, there's not a huge market for us in that space. And some of it goes back to, you don't have water and sewer, so once you start putting multiple dwelling units on a septic or a well, those are different issues you've got to navigate. But our annual market potential with new builds could be up to 50 homes.
Hmm.
We could build 50 homes a year in this community and people will be moving in. Just retaining, you're looking at 15 and 10 for renters. In all of these, if you look, are, you know, owner occupied, private yards, that type of space. There is not a demand in our market for a condo, for apartments, for lofts, any of those type of developments. Look on page 7, it says, new builds under the conservative scenario, Lake Isabella has an immediate and near-term market potential to build at least 50 new residential units annually for the owner or buyer market. Among those new builds, all should be detached houses, including some cottages with views, glimpses, or breezes from the communities inland lake. You know, so, well, by and large, our market is one that people still want to have that private entrance or a private yard, that kind of thing. You could do some attached housing, but they've got to have an entrance that, you know, the other unit isn't gonna see you come in, or you gotta have your own private backyard, those type of things, so. Very specific in what would be appropriate based on the data for our area. Page 10, home value tolerance for Lake Isabella for new builds. Our kind of sweet spot in that range appears to be in the 325 to 450 range for new build. You know, 175 was kind of the low end in terms of where there'd be any demand. And then over 500,000, there was the same from one. It's kind of a bell curve, but it's really weighted at the 375, 400 is kind of being where that home value tolerance level would be.
Tim?
Yeah.
Based on this, looking at this, is there any push to start doing low income housing in our area? Do you get any pushback on that? It's just a non-issue out
I've
here.
not had anybody approach me to do any projects like that. And again, one of your hurdles that you're gonna have, if you wanted to do that type of development, those are developments that typically need to be tied in an area that have other public services, especially public transportation for medical care, grocery, those type of things. And, you know, we don't have a robust public transit option out county. We have iRide, you know, but when you're dealing with low income development specifically, you've got to factor all those other decisions in life and like, how do I get my groceries? How do I get my kids to school? You know, how do I go to the doctor? You know, and the further you get away from Mount Pleasant, quite frankly, the harder it gets to make any of those scenarios work because all of that's in Mount Pleasant, so. So on page 12, you can kind of see the annual buyer potential in Lake Isabel. So these are your lifestyle clusters.
Fast track couples.
Fast track couples,
Yeah, like, what does that
That's
mean?
me.
sport utility families, unspoiled splendor, destination recreation. You know,
What's a
Mike,
country
Mike, this is you, Birkenstocks and Beamers. Farzad, red, white, and bluegrass.
That's me.
Doesn't
seem to be any bohemian groove, whatever.
no. Aging of Aquarius.
No true grit Americans either.
Yeah, we break that out in our current plan, like you, obviously, we'll do that with this, but these are the actual characteristics of what makes up that demographic, you know, so. Knowing that is kind of what our market area. you know, this is all data that I think is very helpful for us because it allows us to stay focused on what the right things we need to be worried about in our zoning code and our development focus needs to be, because you know, there's no value for us to go off and spend months talking about townhouse design or those type of things when there's just not a market for it, guys, like. We need to really be focused in on what we're good at than everything else. One of the things that I had mentioned in my email to everybody was the potential to try and do a joint meeting.
Yes.
And I think that would be something I'm gonna reach out and see what type of schedule availability, the consultant has to do that. But tons of data here. But again, if you look at the mismatch. Traditional houses, 100% of demand, you know,
What else is there here? I mean, yeah.
duplexes, no, triplexes, no.
Right.
5 to 9, no. One of the things that. Yeah, forgive me, I'm gonna have to state price. Pass them down. And this is. In the. Big package you got emailed. All of it. There are some illustrations of. Kind of like small cottage type houses, and that's one of the things that they did point out is that
Yeah.
there certainly is a market for. Cottage style homes off the lake, so thinking 900 square feet. So that is an area where we definitely should look at. Putting in our ordinance, hey, if you want to do something smaller than 1,200 square feet as they can their minimum in LR1. You know. This is what we'd be looking at, but. Of what I just handed out. On the. Third from last page, courtyards building formats. Yeah, like the cottage square, we allow that right now actually in our ordinance, efficiency dwelling. Courtyard building formats, it's like this. Yep, 13 last page. You know, it's funny, the consultant brought up accessory dwelling units when I was talking to her, I'm like. We had some interesting conversations about accessory dwelling units here back in the day, along with bed and breakfast and. The reason why those aren't in New York. But, so an attached type dwelling scenario that might work in a very limited capacity with like the accessory dwelling court where you've got essentially a private separate entrance that's not in view of the other.
Is that similar to the super cute house right on the water that has the? I wish I knew the address, but. When you're going down the lake, same side, the lake is means a gray house and it's just adorable accessory dwelling. That sort of has a little.
Separate little apartment building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a waterfront house. I just wondered. this
Like a
sort of
mother-in-law,
reminds me of-
mother-in-law's apartment, right next, connected to the house.
Sits on I think it's like a little tiny cul-de-sac if you're on the road. It's so hard. The water view is so different from the road view. And I should know what road
I
it's
think where that's at.
on, but I think it's just off from Lincoln.
I
Because it
think-
loops around.
I think you're thinking of. It's actually a garage, isn't it?
No,
But from the
It's a
lakeside, we
mother-in-law.
don't know, it looks like,
looks like about an 800 square foot apartment,
yeah. It does.
you know, like a 2-story
I
apartment.
just wondered if that's what it was considered, like this accessory dwelling in corner. I'll have to figure out what house it is.
Is it, so it's south of you then?
Yes,
So,
and I think it would be So you know how Lincoln loops completely around?
Mhm.
It's like in the middle of where Lincoln would,
I think I know exactly where you're talking.
maybe
about.
across from Ann Street?
The garage.
It's a garage.
It's a garage.
It doesn't have living quarters in it?
It's a two-story garage. Oh, how do I get this?
Doesn't look like that from the lake. I mean, it may very well be.
It looks like a,
Um,
an apartment.
it's a very fancy damn garage, I'll tell you that.
Nice looking. The whole setup looks nice.
Yeah, I really like it. That's why I wondered if that was the same thing. I'm gonna ask him if I can go inside,
There,
pull my boat up.
1071 Lincoln.
So that's just nothing but a garage? That's what you said?
Well, it's two-story garage, so
Yeah.
garage and.
From the
storage.
front side, it looks super cottagey.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like a-
That shocks me as being a garage.
Yes, you can tell that
Yeah.
it attaches, but
But
it's,
it's like a walk.
Mhm. well, they sit on the front porch as if that's just a little guest house and I would have never guessed it's
That was built
Very-
in like 2005, 2006, I wanna say.
in any event, it's adorable. And I just thought maybe it was that same thing.
That'd be allowed at all? If that was a separate, like a mother and father-in-law apartment?
Yeah, it looks like it.
I mean, so it's not a garage, I'm turning that into a two-story
Apartment.
dwelling.
As of right now, we don't have accessory
We do
dwellings,
that.
so we wouldn't allow that.
We have accessory dwellings in the LR5 district, which this is not LR5, this is LR1. And when we did accessory dwelling units, where we settled in on it is it had to be attached, it couldn't be detached because of that scenario that you were talking about, like, oh, is, you know, the mother-in-law, but when she passes away or the house sells, you know, someone's gonna want to turn that into an apartment where we thought, okay, if it's attached and physically part of the primary structure, then it's, you know, really easy to make that back into a single dwelling situation. You know, and the lack of water and sewer, I think really make ADUs challenging. Because what are you're gonna put in a whole new septic for that now, or? That thing's working all great with Jeff's here tonight. You know, like the side-by-side duplex on the next page, small building format. That would be another type example of an attached scenario that has, you know, consistency with what our market supports, you know, private entrance. But like the stack duplex, the row house, none of that's gonna jive here. You know, like the cottage narrow, the cottage wide, cottage skinny, those are things that could work on backlots in LR1, you know, 900 square foot size dwellings. And I think that, you know, if we look at what we're seeing in terms of development. The part that has given me the greatest heartburn in the last 5 years of what has been developed. Is what we saw in the early 2000s where you had spec builders building essentially starter homes, you know. 12, 13, 1400 square foot ranches off the water, you know. We don't have that anymore, and we need that. We can't. As a community, we can't be monolithic in our housing stock. We can't be monolithic in our demographics. We have to have diversity. We have to have variety. And that segment of our housing market is not being developed and it needs to be, quite frankly. So as we move forward with our master plan and look at what we can do in the zoning code. I mean, one thing to think about is, do we reel back on those square footage requirements for non-waterfront homes? Waterfront's a different animal. You know, that's a different market.
Yep.
Non-waterfront, I think there is potential for us to grab more development with softening some restrictions there.
I could see some of that happening as more of the mobile homes that are back there are aging quite a lot.
Mhm.
If we could somehow ease up on it so that it's an advantage to somebody that's living back that way to build something a little bit nicer or bring in something a little bit nicer than a mobile home so that I can see over time that the aging mobile homes would get more replaced with something like the small 1,000 foot, 1,200 square foot modular home or something on those lines. So whatever we would need to look into for the zoning for that area to encourage it would be nice.
Well, I think with,
Over time,
Over time, yeah, I mean,
because people live there now, can't
Right.
afford to do it.
yeah,
I understand that, and that's why I go back to what Mike was saying, the low income kind of stuff like that, if we could encourage. Something that could be put in there that would, a low income could look into and say, yeah, I could afford that instead of living in a 40-year-old mobile home that just falls apart.
so we made that amendment back in 22, 23 when we did the code.
Mhm,
And we created that non-conformity exception for single wide mobile homes.
mhm.
So if you have a single wide mobile home, you can rip that sucker out and put in one that is new up to 10 years old.
But not single wide, though.
Yeah, no, we did single wide.
We did single wide.
Single wide.
The whole premise of this was as we looked at development, we said, wait a second,
Mhm,
we've got a ton of vacant property around it. There's no market incentive to come in and take the single wide home and try and redevelop the site. When I could go literally next door on a green build and not have to deal with building around a septic, building around a well, all that kind of stuff. Your property is set up specifically for a 14 by 70 or whatever. Just allow those to be swapped out for something new.
mhm.
And now you created that opportunity because the remaining infrastructure is all there sitting around, you know, based on the configuration of where that single wide went in 75, 80, whenever.
Mhm.
That was our hope. We've not had anybody do it. We've had some interest in it, but nobody's done it because single wides aren't cheap anymore. They're expensive.
But that gets me back to, and again, I haven't seen anybody come out here and do it, but maybe it would take somebody doing one or two of them, but some of the small. 500, 750 square foot. Dual, type housing.
Yep.
That a single person would live into, or maybe two people at most, but to me, that would be something that if we could make sure that the conforming. Stuff that we have around it would allow stuff like that. I don't know that. In one single lot, I don't know that you could put two or three of those, because I don't know if the septic tank would handle that kind of stuff, but. If it's possible to look into stuff like that, or
Mhm.
in an area where you've got. 2 or 3 lots, 4 lots or whatever, and maybe have one central septic tank that could be hooked up to multiple. Small places like that, encouraging more people to live in that smaller area.
Yeah.
Again, same thing, driveway, parking, you know, all that stuff has to be looked into as well, but. To me, it would be nice to see if there's any encouragement for people who, university students or, somebody who's just starting out living here, who just can't afford anything bigger than that yet.
So is that still in where you can? Did you just say still on the trailer, on the single wides, you can still?
Yeah.
But that's only on lots that have.
Correct.
Single wide.
They pretty much already have the ports
Yeah.
meant for a single wide anyway, so short of roofing all that up. And rebuilding something in there or combining 2 lots.
Aren't the newer ones
Pretty much
bigger
one
than
of
the 12 by? No,
They're bigger, a lot of them are bigger than what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're built for like a 12 by 70, but then a lot of these are 16 by 80s.
So that,
I mean,
So
so
double
you,
wide side.
that
no,
would be.
that's the single wide, that's 16
so
foot
double
by
wide?
80 foot.
Oh.
The 12 by 60,
Okay.
it started out to be 12 by 60, then it
Okay,
went to be 14 by 70.
Yeah,
Now they're
now they're
16 by 80.
okay.
So will they still fit on those lots?
Probably. I mean, the biggest issue is, how you tie into your septic. And that,
My point is that I don't know if the manufacturers are gonna go back to building the smaller units.
Well, my,
I mean,
my question.
unless you can buy a used one somewhere, then pay a fortune to have it moved.
We said it could be up to 10 years old.
But it's finding one and then paying a mover to move it
Yes.
is significant.
The moving is probably 10 grand or something, depending on where you're coming from.
It might want a little more weekend vacationers and stuff too. Like Higgins Lake and places like that, where you go up the road, there's the smaller, and the people come up and spend the summers there and stuff like that. It's not promoting somebody moving or living here, but it's another avenue for people to come up.
You're talking the cabins, or you're talking the single wides?
Cabins. Yeah, building a cabin, it's a group of small houses.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, because they got the water that they can go
That's the
to.
cheapest one they have there in Clark,
And
Clayton,
top left corner.
and kind of,
Yeah,
this one,
yes, 136,000.
just for that, you guys still gotta pay the.
But I mean, it's still 2 bedrooms, a whole tiny little modular home.
it's not cheap anymore. but
No.
At the same time, are you not to? Are you trying to? You're trying to make it affordable, but you're also trying to clean up some spots, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And. This is getting off subject, but that single wide thing, to me, you're gonna have that same issue down the road.
That's why I'm thinking out loud that it is how.
With the cottage thing, I mean. I
Mhm.
think it's a good deal.
It brings in people who don't wanna be here permanently for years, but. Doesn't mean that they couldn't move up here while they're going to college for 4 years, or come up here for, whatever else, a temporary job, or. In a job that doesn't pay a ton of money, but they still want their own little house that isn't a trailer or a mobile home, so.
The aesthetics of our community. would be
Exactly,
better
that's what
with
I'm
the
trying to
small cabin.
politely say.
With a small cabin.
Aesthetics
instead of
would
a
be
single.
nice.
Yeah,
I would definitely agree with
Now,
that.
take in mind, the single wide is only in LR2, and the only provision we have to do a single wide is if you have one now to swap it out with a new one.
Right,
So the code doesn't allow you to bring in new single wides on vacant property.
right.
but what kind of zoning, if any, could we do to encourage not bringing in another single wide and bringing in something else, such as those 2 or 3 of those tiny little houses, or
Well,
something on those
to
lines.
make an example, like on Queensway. On certain areas of Queensway, that's the main drive coming in, right?
Mhm.
So it'd be nice to. Try to.
Yeah.
Promote cleaning up the main,
Well, I mean,
None of the property on Queensway is zoned LR2.
okay,
All the lots at front Queensway are LR1.
Mhm.
Now you go.
so that only pertains to LR2.
Correct.
So if there is trailer houses on LR1,
There's not any trailer houses on LR1.
What you're seeing
What
is
is the
there's a
one
vacant
across-
lot. There's vacant lots
what
that
is
you
the one
can
at-
see through.
what is the one right straight at the end of, Castle Lane?
That's not on Queensway, that's on Sevilla. There's a lot between that house and Queensway.
Yeah, so on Queensway, you can see all the trailers butting up, but it's all vacant property. You can just see through the trees, I think. If I'm understanding where you're at.
It's right at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, all the way to the end?
I know their driveway is off of that, but they also have a dirt drive that goes right onto Queensway.
Okay, are you talking Queensway before you turn left to go around, or at the end? of
I'm
Queensway
talking
that way?
Castle
Castle,
Lane, no,
okay.
Castle Drive,
Okay,
where it tees into
Queensway,
Queensway,
okay.
there's a trailer house right there.
Oh, on the west side of Queensway then?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember, I guess I couldn't tell you if it's a trailer house or not, I don't remember exactly what it looks like, so, but that's within the area of LR2. On the west side of Queensway.
So the west side of Queensway is LR2.
Yeah,
No, the west side of Queensway is LR1.
oh, yes, on the road, on Queensway,
The lot you're talking about here fronts on Sevilla.
yes.
And there's a vacant lot there that they're just utilizing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
whether they own it or
They
not.
do own it,
Yeah,
they do
so
own
they
it.
just utilize it
Yes.
with their,
but their home is right here on this
I
lot
know
right
what you're
here.
talking about now.
I thought it was lots butting up to each other.
Gotcha.
Yeah, none of Queensway is LR2. No.
I thought it was, so, okay, good to know.
Barcelona, Sevilla, you get all those.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where all the trailers are.
Yeah, so these three, this is Woods One, there isn't a Woods Two, I don't know why they call it Woods One, but whatever. Forest One and Forest Two. Woods One, interestingly enough, comes all the way down here and all the way up to here. So Woods One actually fronts on Castle.
Oh,
This lot is Woods One, Woods One, Woods One, Woods One.
It's all, what's it called?
Torello or Sherba owns
Sherba,
these
yeah.
five.
The pink one.
These he does not own.
hub stores.
Yeah, the hub is right here. And if you wanna know another fun fact, Woods One building and use restrictions do not contain any restrictions for these four lots. The number stops at like 112 and we go up to 116.
They can do whatever you want.
Pretty much, under the building use restrictions. Their zoning's different, but
Is there a map of the village?
yeah, that's right from our website.
I mean, can I print this or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can go right out there.
Yeah.
You can find it on the BSNA too, and you just zoom in and.
Yep.
You can snoop around as much as you want.
Steve owns
Well,
Kind of
how
fun.
the GIS.
It's hard to get people that you want, or more or less the campers, the people that come in. Do they have families or the kids? I mean, these are just temporary seasonal
What's that?
people you're looking for?
No, I would love to see starter, I would love to see starter families, you know, it's.
Yeah, I don't want to just, the issue I've had with some of the people living here that were used to be my clients when I was at the bank. Is that they gave up because the major employment.
Yeah.
Is Mount
Yeah.
Pleasant, but the school district is the opposite
The
direction.
wrong way.
And unless you have
Literally half our kids are,
kids to pick up, even if you had school of choice.
Yeah.
All right, to go out
Yeah.
there, you have to have someone picking up your kids.
Mhm.
And that was,
Yeah.
that, I had several clients that turned around and sold. and
Yep.
moved back to Mount Pleasant.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't take Mount Pleasant, but there was no one here to have the kids come back from Chip Hills.
Right.
Not that Chip Hills is a bad school, I don't wanna get anywhere near that, they're a
You're
good
right.
school.
yeah,
It's
It's
just the
widespread.
wrong direction.
literally half the kids in Lake Isabella. School of choice to be in. Ballpark, you know. You've got 300 kids roughly from Lake Isabella that go to Beale City schools.
And a handful that go over to Sacred Heart. too.
Sacred Heart, yeah,
Yes,
um,
yeah, I don't, my grandkids go there, no,
Yeah.
but that
and again,
is-
it's not anything negative against Chip Hills, it's a simple matter of logistics.
and that where their major employment's one way and the
Yep.
kids, that's gonna be in my opinion, that's the bigger stop of getting young families
Yep.
here.
And it's not even just the school, but it's also the conference you're in too, so. All of the other schools that your kid's gonna go play volleyball or whatever are all going the wrong way from where you were, you know?
Yeah,
And that's not that
Central
feels
Park
any
area.
greater when, you know, everything in conference is an hour drive, but still.
Yeah, I've got quite a few same thing, neighbors and friends who did the same thing, they moved out here, they loved it when they had kids.
Yeah.
And now they're back and
Yeah.
forth, and sure enough, they moved away, they moved back. where the
Because they
kids
just
are.
can't handle
And
it.
then maybe after the kids are grown, then they wanna come back out here now, because now they don't have.
That's why you gotta look more like
Yeah.
white people like me,
Mhm.
you know, moving out here,
Yeah.
all right? Is, the kids are done, so they're here. So either you get young couples looking for rent, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But not really a childbearing age, because you're not, unless that you can correct that somehow, we can't
Yeah,
correct it.
How old, or what number of classes, or how many grades are there in Rayton Elementary?
Bladen
Those
goes
are
up to fourth grade.
That's it, and then they go to Chippewa.
Then they go to Raymond's, then
Yep.
they go to.
I was thinking it was up to like sixth grade or eighth grade or something, like that,
No,
you know? Okay.
no, the middle school at Chip, I believe, is fifth, sixth, and. Do they go to fifth? I think they go to fifth grade at Bladen. It's sixth, seventh, and eighth, all
Is
right,
it fifth grade?
I'm pretty sure it's fifth, yeah.
So sixth, seventh, and eighth are just.
That's middle school, that's in Raymond's.
Fifth grader goes.
Then
to-
high school.
Might be. It might be now, I'm trying to think of.
But even, I mean, it's gonna take a lot to change all that before, I think we would see families say, oh, okay, it's willing to stay out here. You know, if somehow or another the kids were still local in Wayman or whatever, so versus going all the way out to Chip Hills, so.
Mhm.
Well, of course, they don't say what grade you teach.
Not kids with driver's licenses, we know that. So logistically, we do have some hurdles to jump to try that
I
solve.
think it's
some-
buses come. You gotta be
I
home,
thought-
they're getting the kids when. they
Yep,
come
you're right.
home If they're still young.
Yeah, someone's gotta be home.
Yep.
I mean, busings are there, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Mhm.
You have to get up there early busing to leave because of the routes that they gotta travel. And they get home a little late, but someone's gotta be home.
Right.
There is, I does have a pass program. I know there are families that. Their kid gets dropped off at Beal in the morning when someone's going to work and they ride the I-Ride home, you know. I threaten my kids with that whenever they get out of line.
Well, we did have that time years ago where Chip Hills had financial problems,
They
where
were
they
no
weren't
busing.
picking kids up in the
Yeah.
morning, and they were only dropping them off. Or vice versa, whatever it
Yeah.
was,
It's hard enough for parents.
but that hasn't happened again. in a
At least 2
while.
days a week, I'm picking up my grandkids from school. Because both parents are working,
Yes,
all
right.
right? And when you've got them in like sixth grade and third grade,
Mhm.
they're not gonna, they're not gonna go home by themselves.
Is there any kind of services that could be provided to where to help alleviate some of that, and we could think about where kids could get
That's a
dropped off, a bunch
possibility.
of kids at one time, and then the parents come
Could
pick them up
provide
from
some
the
type of
spot.
service.
Yeah.
I know that's costly and it's the last thing you wanna do, but
Right,
it's a possibility to attract
Mhm.
more of a family growing. And
Yeah.
then,
with those kind
then
of
they have
services.
roots here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then they develop roots.
I could see something like that, like with community service building or something like that, where there would be a daycare or something where the bus could drop the kids off, and then parents can pick them up after work.
That's what we put out on airline, Tim. Community service building.
On airline,
Isn't it? No, Arthur, sorry.
Arthur.
Don't we own right on the corner there? And we've talked about what we could put
On Drew,
on the corner of
oh,
Drew.
the
Sorry,
5
Arthur,
acres,
we
yeah,
probably
the
have
5
that.
acres up on the north end of the lake here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that to me would be a perfect place for a community center, because it's sunrise and the sun's at both sides of the lake. Could, meet there and do that. It's 5 acres of land. That's originally one of the places we talked about putting this building. Until they changed and bought this land instead, but. That's something you could look at as future growth to help encourage small families like that, to say, hey, we're gonna build something that the bus could drop the kids off at. And they can stay here till 5 or 6 o'clock, whatever it is.
The problem is what bus, is it Chip Hills bus?
I'm sorry?
Because Beal City's bus ain't gonna come
they can't
in.
come out of district.
They have the ICTC pass.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is something that, Tim, that you're planning on setting with our consultant, a meeting with us as well as village council,
Yeah.
and you'll let us know so we can get
Yeah.
that, we can discuss. further.
My plan would be to get 3 or 4 different options and kind of give everybody a Zoom poll option or a Google and. Wherever we get the most people, we're gonna get the most people.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we can talk more about this. It
Yeah.
sounds like we're definitely
there's-
interested in.
There's how close we are to Beal City School District.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Wademan went with the Chip Hills.
No.
I know there, at some point in the past, I was told there was a big rift between.
Yep.
The Wademan and Beal City, and they got mad at Beal City and they left and went to.
Oh,
Chip
there
Hills.
is that.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Because Beal was it was supposed to be Beal, Waveman, Barrington, McCosta, and Remus were the 5, is my understanding of the history. And ultimately Beal stayed on their own. And the process, there isn't even a process to petition to get school district boundaries changed. It's horse trading between the 2 districts is how it ever happened. Chip Hills is never gonna
Is-
give us up.
Is this something, what we're talking about, the transportation over here and over there, is that something? You can have somebody do a study on it? Or we come up, they do studies and come up with many alternatives. Because it's obvious that we could come up with some kind of solution to that. It would really open up people that, it'd take one of the
I
negatives
think-
away
I
from
think
being
it's a
out
public
here.
road,
Oh, tremendously.
unbelievably.
Mhm.
And I have no idea, because I'm not into it, but maybe there's some studies,
Mhm.
some people that can do that and
Or as we look to
give
become,
us some ideas.
as we look to become a city, that could be.
Definitely,
Or the
yeah.
pros that we can do to sell this, we want to become a city. Those are some of the things we could say, hey, we're thinking about these types of things to help the people who live here have an easier, better life. Which may include something like that.
I mean, that would go along with our master plan.
Yeah.
World domination.
On that note. Okay, so Tim's gonna report back. We're gonna see if we can get a meeting with all of us,
Yeah.
the village council and the consultant that did some of this paperwork. So Tim, is there anyone on the line for public comment? Just wanna make sure nobody's got their hand up.
I don't see anybody with their hand up.
Okay. So I would say we could open it for public comment, make sure there's no hands up. It's 8:21. As long as there's no hands up, we'll immediately close public comment. Any further commentary from those of us on stage? Hearing none, we're moving quickly past. Any announcements?
Council's first meeting of the year is next Tuesday night at 7 PM. If you visit our website, we're gonna publicize this a little bit more starting tomorrow. We have a short 6-question survey that you can take to share your opinion on honeybees.
I saw that.
Oh goodness, okay.
I saw that.
That's on the website, Tim?
It's right on our
Care
website,
to
yep.
Do that?
If we're gonna do a Facebook post tomorrow, and I'll bribe somebody who uses Nextdoor to post it on Nextdoor for me because I don't use Nextdoor.
Are they trying to make a final?
Yeah, so the council held a public hearing in November and, had good feedback from the community, pro and con.
Yep.
The concern that a lot of the council members, I think, shared was it seemed like the comments that they were receiving reflected generalities and not specifics to what was drafted. So the hope of the council was, let's do honeybees in January, chickens in February, and have a short kind of survey that is specifically asking about what was in the draft ordinance, So,
Okay, well, everybody, if you're interested, check out the website for your 6-question survey.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:23. Thank you for your time, everyone.